Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Digital Influence. My name is Dallas McMillan. I'm brand strategist at Influential, a web design, marketing, and branding agency for professionals. Tonight, I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite topics, building your online influence and raising your profile so that you stand out as a leader in your industry. Now, this work has really evolved from the work I've done with my clients, thinking about what they need to do to stand out online and really develop a reputation as an expert at what they do, be highly visible in the marketplace, and also differentiate themselves from their competition so that they're really offering something unique to the market. And as you probably know, I mostly work with professionals in this health, finance, business coaching, legal type industries. So people who are working one-on-one with their customers, who rely on their expert knowledge. They've typically got qualifications and they're usually working one-to-one with clients. They're charging quite a lot for their time, but their time is not necessarily that leverage. So there's a lot of specialization to how I've developed this method to take those factors into account. So as I mentioned, my clients are mostly in health, medical, accounting, bookkeeping, management consulting, lawyers, business coaches. I've got some life coaches and some change management type people, but they all sort of really share the situation where they've got relatively high status. Their customers tend to respect them. They charge well and they're perceived as being expensive, but they want to get more customers online. And what often happens is, although their clients really love what they do, they often aren't particularly good at referring them. And very often their clients don't understand the services that they offer or understand what makes them different to their competition. So their clients love them, but they don't necessarily refer that well. And my clients tend to be great at what they do, but they still need to market themselves. And as professionals, we've sort of adopted this myth really that our business mostly comes from word of mouth, and that's really important. But these days word of mouth is mostly occurring online. People are largely communicating with their friends over the phone, over instant messaging, Facebook messaging, email, Skype, all these digital media. So anything we can do to support the referral process is really valuable. And so that is a little bit contrary to the traditional attitude of professionals where they thought, oh look, if we just do the job right, then our customers will refer us. But we know that often that doesn't happen. And although they're thrilled that we did the job for them, they're really happy with what they did, nonetheless they don't refer at the rate that we'd like. So there's a whole range of professions are in this situation, and my experience has mostly been around lead generation for these businesses. So setting up online marketing systems that help them attract clients and then try and convert them into customers. Now, as I said, word of mouth isn't going away. Referrals are really important for many professionals. They only get work from formal referrals from colleagues or other professionals. If you're a specialist doctor, people can't come straight to you and say, hey, look, I need brain surgery. They can only come via referral from another professional. But these colleagues, when they're trying to refer you, the first thing they do too often is go to Google or go to their contact management system or find someone on LinkedIn. I've definitely been gone to see a doctor and they've had to Google who was the local specialist in something. So being visible online is critical, even if you rely on word of mouth. And there's another group of experts and professionals who really understand the importance of growing their profile. And these are people who've built their business. It might be a consultancy, it might be a coaching business. And they've built it around things like public speaking or writing or blogging or some other sort of platform where they really understand the importance of marketing. They're really interested in growing their online visibility and building their profile as well. So they'll take less convincing than your average traditional professional, but it's important for everyone. So what's possible from doing this type of work? Well, you can attract more clients, you can build your reputation as an expert, and that means getting often the best jobs, the ones that are most specialized and highly paid. And you can stop competing on price, because if you're able to differentiate yourself from your competition, and one way to do that is just by being highly visible, because most people aren't doing it, but we look at other ways as well, then people will seek you out and want specifically what you've got. They're not comparing you to other people because there's no one else quite like you. And what I've seen working with professional firms over, well, really in my own business for the last decade, and over the last 4 or 5 years working with my clients, these are the 3 big factors that determine the type of referrals you're going to get online. Firstly, you need to be highly visible. If people can't find you, if they don't know about you, it's impossible for them to come to you and work with you or to refer you. So being highly visible is essential. That really is closely tied to the number of referrals you get. That's the quantity. Secondly, we need to be credible. We need to look like an expert. We need to be known as an authority in our industry, and just generally been seen as having a great reputation of being good at what we do. That's all our credibility. And that's going to determine to a large degree the quality of the referrals you get. If you're known as an expert, you're going to tend to get specialized, higher end, more complex, demanding types of jobs, and they tend to be higher paid, and often you can specialize and do more of the same type of work, which often means you're more efficient, and there's just less people competing for it. And then thirdly, you want to be different from everyone else. If everyone in your industry offers the same 10 services and you offer them as well, then your customers confused about the difference between you, and they'll be forced to choose on the only thing they really understand, which might be price, it might be where your location is, if you're close to them, if they're a friend of a friend, all these factors that don't really impact the quality of service, but that's the only way they can tell you apart. So it's important that you've got clearly distinguishing characteristics that separate you from your competition. Otherwise, you will be shopped on price. People will be confused. They'll find you and 5 competitors who all kind of look the same, so they'll just go with the cheapest one. So together, those 3 things determine the types of referrals you get: how visible, credible, and remarkable you are. As I said, visible controls quantity, credible controls quality, and remarkable tends to determine your win rate and how hard you have to compete to win a specific job. So that might almost be thought of as your success rate. If you're highly remarkable, then the people who do find you are going to go, wow, you're someone to work with you. If you're the same as everyone else, then they have to choose between you and 10 competitors, and you'll have a lower win rate. Another way of looking at this, which I like to throw in, is relevance, substance, and difference. How relevant is your message, your product, and your service to your customer, to the customer who's seeing you? So that's directly tied to visibility. If your message is where they're going, if you're advertising on Facebook and they're on Facebook, or if you are active on LinkedIn and they're on LinkedIn, if you're attending local business networking events and they're there, that's all about relevance. If you know a friend of a friend, relevance, relevance, relevance. So that's about visibility. Substance is about your trustworthy, solidity, reliability, and simplicity. So that's closely tied to credibility. And difference, of course, is our remarkability. And it's really clear what happens when you take one of these away. This is really what reinforces the value of each of these. So if it's not relevant, they're just going to say, hey, look, that's not for me. I don't live near you, or I don't need your service, or I've never heard of you before, so I don't know if I want to work with you. Substance is sort of about qualifications and proof and success. That's about trust. And if you don't have that, then it seems too risky and people don't want to do business with you. And difference is about, what we talked about earlier, distinguishing your service from others. Why should they spend money with you rather than someone else, or just the cheapest service? If you don't have some point of difference, then you're going to be shopped on price or other factors beyond your control. Now, I want to talk to you about what happens when people do get exposed to online, because there's quite a specific process that people go through when they're searching for, choosing, and buying professional services. And when I'm talking about professional services here, it's important to remember that these are, compared to products that we might buy, like a car or a hamburger or a even a defined service like an email service. Professional services are actually quite variable between providers. The consumers of them don't really understand or need to understand the background of how they work. There's a lot of expertise and standardization that goes on within the industry that's invisible to the consumer. So professional services are a good example of a product where it's a complex product. The buyers don't really understand how it works. They don't really want to have to. And they're quite a risky product a lot of the time. So they're expensive. It costs a lot to buy professional services, and it can be great value. But if you buy them badly, then they're even more expensive. So if you spend $50,000 with a divorce lawyer, that's a lot of money. If it goes badly, it's going to be a heap more money. So you can sort of see how buying professional services versus buying cars has implications beyond just the cost. The cost of a bad buy can be something much more serious to your life, your business, or your finances, or your health. So it's really important to realize that these are very high value, high trust, and high touch services. There tends to be a lot of interaction between the professional and the purchaser, between the consumer and the professional. And often it's quite a close relationship, and people in some cases get to be, quite good friends with some of their professional providers. The examples might be, people in the finance industry, for example, where they're wining and dining their clients. It's less the case with medicine or law, where there's sort of more of a privacy issue. But for the most part, these are services that people don't buy readily. It's risky to buy them badly, so they're very careful, and that means that you need a lot of trust before people are willing to buy it. Now, something's happened in the last 10 years that has totally changed how people search for, choose, and buy professional services. And look, it's probably more like 20 years that this has been possible, but in the last 10 years, it's become mainstream. So in the old days, the way people would buy your products and services was that they would get a symptom. So they would get sick, for example, and then they'd think, well, gee, I'd better go and see the doctor. And then they'd go and see the doctor, and the doctor would diagnose them and explain their problem, and then prescribe a solution and send them on their way and follow up with them. But over the last 10 years, we've become really experienced. Almost all consumers who are online have become really experienced of using this sort of self-driven buyer's journey, where we get online, we do our own research, and then we try and figure out what's wrong, and then we try and figure out what would be a good solution. We ask our friends what might work well, and effectively we're self-driving our buying process. And this works great if we're buying like some new headphones for our iPhone, or we're researching a house or something that we're thinking of buying, and then we're going to actually go and see the agent. But what's happened is that people are increasingly doing more and more research online themselves, and sort of convincing themselves that they actually, they're doing a very good job of this because they've got no comparison. And often they're ending up at the end of the buying process buying on price, which has really big implications for you as a professional provider, but also to the customer, because they end up making poor purchasing decisions. Now, I'm going to dive in. This is a pretty detailed sort of infographic here, so forgive me if it gets a little bit confusing, but basically we're going to start here on the left and just proceed along with each step. So I'm going to just add some visuals to reinforce the message here. So we start off suddenly realizing we've got a symptom, we've got some problem, and we don't know what it is. We don't even know what it means. So first, we might not know what the symptom actually is or how to describe it, and we don't know what it implies. So we've got this symptom, and then we've got to try and figure out what's going on. So these days, what we do is we jump on Google and we type in our symptoms. This might be that I can't sleep, or that I've noticed this problem with my accounting software, whatever it is. And look, I'll use a health example in here because I've got a veterinary background, so this is the mindset I come from. But also, we've all got bodies, so it's easy to understand this. So it's a nice concrete example. So let's say that we've started off and we've got a symptom. Perhaps I've got a recurring headaches. So at first, it just happens a couple of times. I don't think much about it. And then after a while, it's bugging me enough. I think, gee, I'd better look into this. And I start to make it into a self-assessment. So after I do a little bit of search online about recurring headaches, I realize there's different types of headaches, and that, some of them have, there's a blinding pattern, or that it's a dull throbbing, there's different characteristics. And I start to inform myself about how to assess headaches. So, I'm finding this from online searches. I'll find some medical articles. I'll find commentary from migraine sufferers and from people trying to sell, medications and, natural remedies and miracle cures, lots of diverse sources of information, of which I'm relatively unable to assess the veracity. So, I'm getting information, but I don't know how reliable it is. But from that, I'm having to figure out what's going on. And very often, this involves a lot of social interaction. So I'm reading things like online forums. I might be chatting to friends on social media, and they're saying, oh, my brother had these headaches, and it turned out that, it was this, this, and this. Over time, I assemble this information, and the social feedback is incredibly important because, we're trying to figure out where we fit in. Are our headaches the same as someone else's? And we're looking for people like us with stories and symptoms similar to us. Now, as an expert at what you do, you probably know that often very different problems can present very similarly, and you're looking for that in your diagnostic process. But as a self-directed amateur medico here, trying to figure it out myself, then I don't have that perception. So I'm happy to leap on the first obvious looking diagnosis and say, hey, look, that's going to be my problem. It turns out that I've got this type of headache, and I should do this because this person online seemed just like me. And then often what we'll do is actually share our experiences or consume content from other people. And that might include content from people who are experts at this. So it might be doctors or government authorities talking about different types of headaches, or it might be a drug manufacturer or a homeopathic remedy manufacturer, or someone who manufactures massage oil, lots of different sources. Some of them will have really quite high quality resources designed to help people to diagnose themselves and to shortlist, to choose a solution. How do you know this is the right solution for you type marketing material? And so this shareable content is often one of the ways that we end up making a decision. It actually allows, it fast tracks us purchasing, and that's what it's put out there for. It's put out there to help to market that business and to help people in the buying process. So at this point, we'll often have downloaded some of these and identify some solutions that might be suitable. We think we've figured out what our problem is. We've figured out what's causing it and how we can fix it. And then we've got some possible solutions. And then we go looking for people who can actually sell us that stuff. So, we've sort of heard that we need one of these types of medications or whatever the solution is, and that there's several different people nearby or online who stock it. So then we go and shortlist providers and, compare the different people and maybe have a chat to them and pick their brains. And often this process is iterative. So we might get to here, and when we get to shortlisting the providers, they might say, oh no, actually, you've got this bit wrong. But maybe they're just going to be happy to sell us the wrong thing to make a profit. That's one of the issues with this process, is that there's the expertise is coming very late in the process. But after we've shortlisted providers, ultimately we choose someone who we trust, and then we will purchase the solution and hopefully solve our problem and satisfy the initial discomfort that led to us seeking out help. So that is the classic online buyer's journey, sort of post-internet. That's how we search for, choose, and buy products and services. And as a consumer, it seems pretty good, but as a provider, you'll recognize that people come to you with their self-assessments and self-diagnoses and what solution they think they need, and what the best course of action is. And very often they've got these first steps totally wrong, and they're just so far off base. It just doesn't matter what they're trying to determine which solution's best, for example, but actually they've got the totally wrong diagnosis. That's really common in fields where people are buying a complex product or service, because it does require an expert to understand the context and their specific situation to provide the best solution. For example, the best superannuation product for me is probably different from my friend who's got a different business and a different stage of his life and a different situation with his family. So whereas if you go online, people say, oh, this is the best one. I use these guys. They're really nice. So we end up, it's sort of the blind leading the blind. What I like to look at here is the sort of context that each of these transitions occurs in here. And these are the little arrows. So the first context is search. And this is, what we do first of all is we go searching for more information. Secondly, we're in a social context where we start communicating with other people, and ideally people like us, people with the same symptoms, the same goals, the same needs, the same worldview as us. We're looking for people who we identify with. And you've probably heard of the term a filter bubble. The concept is that each of us is actually stuck within this bubble of information and access and contacts that's self-reinforcing. So if I'm a white male, left-voting, middle-class person, I tend to surround myself with worldviews and information and people that reinforce my perception of the world, to the point where I think that everyone thinks like me, and if you don't think like me, you must be mad. You can really see this in US politics. It's quite hilarious just how polarized it is, and it's almost two completely opposite worlds that couldn't coexist, and yet they're both completely convinced that they're right. And we all do this to some degree. If you're whatever your demographic, you tend to surround yourself with other people, and even if you're quite diverse in what your social life's like or your work environment, nonetheless, the tools, the technologies we use actually reinforce this filter bubble many times. So Google and Facebook and other tools that we're using online are all picking up what we're interested in and giving us more of that. If you click on a search link in Google, that link will often be repeated to you higher in search the next day. If you like certain types of content on Facebook, then you'll see more of that. And if you say you don't want to see things on Facebook, then you'll see less of it. So really, they're feeding into this already strong aspect of human nature, which means we tend to focus on people like us. And that's one of the benefits of going to see a professional. They're not like us, the customer. They're like someone who solves problems for people just like us, and they hang around with other people who solve problems with people just like us. So they've got a worldview that is built to address our needs, and that's one of the benefits of seeing a professional. And that's what we miss if we go online and chat to other people who have the same problem as us without the knowledge that we need. It's the blind leading the blind, as I said. The next step, which I call sharing, that's sort of what I call the context, because really this is shareable content. And as business owners, what we're going to do is to create the shareable content and put it online so that people can download it in their search for answers and solutions. And ideally, we're going to help to shift the input of quality information further to the left, so that rather than ringing us up at the last minute when they think they're ready to buy and us having to re-educate them, we can actually introduce, have our content online so they find that when they're searching online. The next phase of the customer journey, or the professional services buyer's journey, is the shopping phase. So you've probably heard the expression that people hate to be sold to, but they love to shop. And I'm sure you've been in the experience yourself when you're interested in, possibly hiring a professional of some sort. Maybe it's a business coach, or you're thinking about getting a lawyer, or maybe you're going to buy your first suit, or buy your first car. And it can be a bit uncomfortable if you're not used to buying something, going and shopping without knowing the prices. We tend to be a bit wary of saying, oh yeah, yes, I'll work with you, if we don't know what it's going to end up costing us. And for most people, professional services are very opaque when it comes to pricing. It's hard to see how much it costs until you've already committed. So that feels risky and dangerous. Now, by having if you think about our behavior as consumers, we've become much more adept at shopping online. We really love being able to go online and shop and browse and compare different items. Now, some people like this more than others, but the thing that shopping gives the consumer is a feeling of safety and control. And that's actually really important to help people make decisions. If they feel they're able to direct the decision making and choose without pressure, they're happier to purchase. So to give people the sense that they're able to buy under their own steam, rather than sort of have them forced into a buying process, can be very valuable. At the same time, you do need to direct their buying process, because they've never done it before, and you know better what they need, and it's your business as well. You're not obligated to provide things just the way people want. It's got to suit you too. But by having a shopping phase where people can at least see specific packages or services, or the initial consultation cost, and particularly when you can productize or package your services or produce information products that let people get a defined piece of value, especially one which gives them a very quick win or immediate feedback, so instant gratification, they are all things that encourage people to buy. So having a shopping phase is very valuable. And then finally, in the solution phase, people want to know that you can get them to where they want to go. Beyond just solving the symptom for today, they want to feel like they're with the person who can look after them no matter what. So this varies a lot according to the industry. But for example, if I've just got some problems with my accounting today, but then I find someone who can not only fix this problem that was bothering me, but also looks like their business is specifically geared toward helping businesses just like mine to become much more profitable, then that really seals the deal on working with them, rather than them just providing one specific product or service. So someone who can provide a complete solution, or a business path, or an ongoing relationship that is the foundation for this long-term engagement, is another way to sort of seal the deal with a new prospective customer. Now, the situation with most professionals is that they're not supporting the customer buying process. So when people Google them online and research what their symptoms mean, or this sort of background exploratory search they do early on, they don't come up. That they haven't got articles or content or videos or anything online that help them to interpret their symptoms. So as a result, they don't find them. They'll find something else. Often it's sort of paraprofessional stuff. So for example, in the medical industry, the medical profession tends to use formal medical terms for much of what they talk about, and a lot of their publications are in scholarly journals and other more formal channels that don't tend to come up on a Google search, and they don't tend to use colloquial terms for symptoms. So what myself or a friend of mine or my mother or my child will say about their symptoms, that's not the language that doctors use. Doctors use their own language, which means that they miss out on this, even if they have bothered to publish something online. Secondly, they're often not active in this social context. They're not active on things like forums, social media, review sites. They often aren't particularly good at returning email if someone were to email them. All this social interaction, which is where people sort of hash out, what's going on with me? Is this my problem? Who should I see? What sort of problem do I have? The professionals tend to be absent from that conversation. It tends to be consumers and sometimes sort of self-appointed experts, people who are hobbyists at something or have an interest in it, or perhaps are in a kind of a paraprofession, I call them. So that might be, things like naturopaths might be actually quite active on an allergy sufferer's site, and doctors less so, and specialist allergy doctors even less so. So very often the more professional people are removed from this early search and social commentary when people are making sense of their diagnosis. Thirdly, as I said, they haven't published this shareable content. And by shareable content, I mean media like videos, ebooks, reports, PDFs, self-diagnostic tests, all these things that are online and we can access and we can share. And the sharing component is really important, because if we take a step back on the social level, if I'm suffering these headaches and I think, oh, look, that's probably an allergy, and someone says, oh, look, you've got an allergy, you should read this book on preventing allergies with this remedy or this solution, then they can then point me to this shareable resource, and immediately I can kind of instantly consume the same information they have and adopt their worldview. So whoever's put that content out there is actually, sort of controlling how other people are interpreting their situation. So, that's going to impact their self-assessment, their self-diagnosis, and the solutions they choose. So professionals largely fail at doing this. And then fourthly, professionals are pretty terrible at having their products and services shoppable. It's hard if you're lucky if they list all their services. In many cases, they don't effectively list all their services, so even their own customers don't realize everything that they do. It's quite common, for example, that people who are committed and loyal customers of professionals need something that their provider, that this professional provides, and yet they go somewhere else for it because they don't realize they all do it. An example might be, accountants do a lot of business management consulting in some cases, and some other accountants don't. But someone who needed help with, their strategic management of their business might not even think to go to their accountant, whereas that's actually, what their accountant might love to do. So often professionals are poor at communicating what they do, much less making them shoppable and easy to consume. Contrast that to if you are going to buy, an online course or a book, you can browse a whole library full of them and say, yes, I'll have that one, thanks, and buy it off the shelf, giving you immediate gratification, and it's marketed specifically to your needs. So, the connection between, it's so much more customer driven than the professional services marketing, which in many ways the product is very customer driven, but it isn't customer friendly until you actually get into it. And so what tends to happen when people are buying these professional services is they get to the point of shortlisting providers, and it's only then that they'll actually email you or phone you or visit your practice and get in touch and say, hey, I think I need what you're selling. How much is it going to be, or when can I come and see you? So what's happened effectively is that the whole process has been reversed. It used to be that people had a symptom and then they'd see the professional early on. The professional would assess the problem, would diagnose the problem, would identify solutions and make recommendations to move forward and then solve the problem. So that's been reversed now. And the impact is that many times customers will come to you and they've misdiagnosed themselves. They're trying to buy the wrong thing, and you're sort of starting off on the wrong foot. If you try to set your customer straight, if you try and set your client straight and say, hey, no, that's not what you really need, then that might seem uncooperative or interfering, or like you're trying to sell them something higher priced than what they want. Because people, by and large, want to have cheap, simple, easy problems, not expensive, complex, difficult ones. So when they're self-assessing and self-diagnosing and self-selecting solutions, they'll tend toward the easy, cheap, simple ones, even if that's not their problem. You'd much rather have the mild headache than the brain tumor. The professional knows there's a way to find out the right problem. There's a diagnostic process you follow that will give you accurate answers, but that should be applied back here, not here on the phone when people are trying to expedite the process for convenience rather than follow a proven process. And I used to see this all the time as a vet. People would ring up and say, hey, my dog has a broken leg, and I've Googled it, and it needs an x-ray. How much is an x-ray? And effectively, they're wanting to just pay for the x-ray. And a lot of the time, the leg isn't even broken. They've got it all wrong, and they don't realise that even if it does need an x-ray, there's other things we're going to do before we get to that point, and we definitely need to see it before we even contemplate giving them a quote for an x-ray, because we're looking at the big picture. There's, clinical situations are much more complex than just the problem and the solution. There's other things going on. So I hope this has really helped give some insight into the way the way we want to shop online is actually at odds with getting a good outcome, and that it's actually an ethical responsibility of you as a professional to be providing sort of culturally appropriate information to your customers. So now that means online information. It used to be that culturally appropriate was having a handout in your waiting room or talking to them in the consultation. But now they're beyond your help until they actually get to this point. You need to make sure that you're putting out useful information here, because there's plenty of misinformation that your customers and clients are encountering, and you really need to counter that. If you don't, then they'll be getting misinformation and often ending up with very poor outcomes, or spending a lot of money, or delaying treatment, or risking adverse outcomes from going about the wrong thing. And as I said, I've used a medical framework when describing this, but really it can be just as serious if someone gets the wrong legal advice, or if they delay taking action on their business or their finances. Having that information out there will help your business grow. It will also help your customer, and really it's part of our ethical responsibility to our clients. And that's really what differentiates professionals from other businesses, is we're not just selling a product or service. We are providing an ethical and a social solution for people. So there's a bit more to what we are responsible for. So successful digital brands, you basically tick these boxes early on. They are searchable, they're sociable, they're shareable, they're shoppable, and by promoting, they're scalable. So each of these steps, there's something we need to do to get there. To start to become searchable, we need to have some sort of online marketing platform, a website, social media, lots of the other tools that we can use to communicate with our customers. To be sociable, we need to position ourselves where we're relevant to our customers. We need to be there when they're asking the questions. We need to be seen as an expert. There's no point being on an online forum for allergy sufferers and failing to announce that you have special expertise there and expect them to listen to you. You should be advertising or claiming that I'm an allergy specialist, or I'm a doctor with a special interest in treating allergies, and I'm happy to answer your general medical questions. I can't give you complete advice, but I can point you in the right direction. So that's a good way to position yourself, is to make it clear how you're relevant to the situation. Then we need to publish. We need to publish shareable content that people can then share with their friends. And the really interesting thing about this is this shareable content really penetrates back, and that's what gets found on search as well. So we publish that on our platform, and that's how people find us online, because they're going to type in, I'm getting these symptoms, And if we've described those symptoms well in our shareable content, we've got a chance of being found. Next, we want to package our products and services, and to make them, I like to call it bite-sized chunks. So we put them into packages or products that are the right size for people to buy. And this doesn't mean that you can necessarily do this with everything. A lot of your products and services, things that you do for your clients, are customized or they take a long time. But if there's some way to turn them into a monthly fee, or to have a small introductory package, or an information product that delivers some aspects of what people routinely need as they're preparing to buy something, then that can make you much more accessible to your customers. And then finally, we need to actively promote. And what that lets us do is to actually scale our business in a predictable, sustainable way. If you can promote your business and attract clients on demand, that means you can plan to add a new associate next year and know that you'll be full. But you need to have systems in place that let you promote your business on demand. Just a repeat of that. Okay, so we'll just skim through those steps again. Firstly, you need a platform which will make you searchable. And in terms of building your online profile, I like to use this symbol because we are building and you need a strong foundation. But then for your client, the process of working with you is kind of risky. They're sort of got to jump from step to step. And we want to make that as strong and solid as we can. So I use this symbol to represent your customers stepping up to working with you and buying your most valuable products and services, and this to represent building your online presence, which can support that process. And you can really see that this also is kind of like the steps, but it's a sort of a more solid version. So platform to make you searchable, positioning, and so that you can be more sociable, publish to make you shareable, package to make you shoppable, and promote to make you scalable. And that's how you can prepare your business to launch and take off in the future. The amazing thing about the professions is that we really are quite a conservative bunch, and it means that most businesses, most of your competitors aren't doing any of this. So if you just start to get on board, if you're one of the businesses that gets serious about this and takes action and follows through and is consistent, you really can stand out in your industry and become seen as a leader online, and that will help you grow your business enormously. And once we've got those 5 steps in place, then people can follow them and move up to do business with us, so they can safely follow up this little staircase or elevator to know, like, and trust us before they try and buy our most valuable products and services. So I'm going to wrap up now. The rest of the slides here that relate to the next part of this talk, but the essence of all this is really making sure that your marketing is built to appeal to the way your customers actually behave online. And one of the best ways to get to work this out is to actually start as a consumer, actually get into using online tools as a consumer. I get a lot of clients who come to me and they say, I want to build this online social media publishing thing where I post something and then it goes to Facebook and Twitter and all these other things. And that's a reasonable goal. But after chatting to them for a while, I realized that actually they're barely even using Facebook as a consumer. And they're not actually using Twitter or all the other things that they want to be auto-publishing to. And that means they actually don't understand the social context, the social conventions that govern these spaces. And particularly in the case of social media, there are norms and rules, and if you break them, it's actually very rude. So to get started with this, you don't necessarily have to spend a lot of money or anything, but you need to spend some time using these things as a consumer. And one of the most useful things is searching online for your customers' symptoms, listening closely to what your clients are saying when they're coming to see you, and talking to them about how they've come to the conclusion and the place they have. And then searching online as if you're them. Search for the symptoms, search for the controversial things that are in your industry, and have a look at what's happening online, and particularly in that social space, the forums, the review sites, the complaint sites, in almost every industry, there'll be a whole counterculture, of people who are running a business basically saying the opposite to what you are. And if you're not aware of that, then you're sort of on the back foot or a bit uninformed compared to your customers, because your customers are seeing this stuff. So it's really important that you sort of come to terms with what the rest of the world is saying about your industry and about your practices and how you work, so that you can be relevant to the conversation. And work through those steps one by one, and you can help to build a business. So this is all part of my digital influence online training program. I'm opening up for a new round of that shortly. I generally work with clients one-on-one, but I try to batch them together, so I'm putting people together at one, in a group, so I can be more efficient with working to them, and also we can get people interacting more, because it does really help when you've got other people with similar challenges and goals and at a similar stage in their business. So over the next few weeks, I'll be launching another round of that, and I'll have some specific videos with some more training. And if you're interested, get in touch with me, and I'll let you know when that next round, that next intake is launching. Thanks very much for joining me again tonight. Again, I'm Dallas McMillan from Influential, and I'll speak to you next Thursday. Thanks again, and have a great night.